Hey there folks, my name is Peter, and this was supposed to be a cheap trip to the Snap-on truck. That's right folks, so I just got off the Snap-on truck and I really went there for one reason and one reason only. I had a few items on order and my expectation was I was gonna pick up those items and come right home. The Snap-on gods, however, would not have it. Instead, only about half of what I ordered was actually available. And then I started moseying around the truck a little bit and came home with a few more things than I originally anticipated. That being said, I think we got some incredible stuff to unbox here today. As always, if you like tools, you'll love this channel, go ahead and subscribe. First things first, why don't we talk about a specialty tool that I picked up. So I'm getting ready to do a full service on my pontoon boat, which has a Mercury outboard motor. Now, I have never done this service in the past, but my marina wanted to charge me $500 to change the oil. I said, no thank you, I would rather spend that money at Snap-on and then do it myself. So I placed an order at merccruiserparts.com. I guess they're based in Florida. They were great to work with. I'll have a link to them below. I haven't used the stuff yet, but my interactions with customer service, making sure I was finding the right parts for the job, everything went great. So anyway, as I was watching some videos on how to do this service, right, and we're talking oil change, spark plugs, fuel filter, the basics. The video I was watching, I could tell that the guy was using all Snap-on tools because now it's just like something I'm focused on. And anyway, he was using this Snap-on screwdriver. So Snap-on officially calls this thing the marine plug screwdriver. So it's purpose built for this process. It's got a 1/2 inch flat tip blade on the end of it, vapor blasted, and the whole thing, I guess, is built out of just a 1/2 inch of alloy that they sort of wind down. It's got the hex here, so you can get some extra torque if you need it. Obviously an oversized instant gripped handle, and we got it in the green. Now typically I wouldn't buy like a specialty tool like this for something that I'm basically gonna use this once a year. But ultimately I thought the price was pretty reasonable on this, and no sooner did I text my dealer than did I get recommended a video on YouTube from Doc at Last Best Tool reviewing this exact screwdriver. So ultimately I feel like I made the right decision. Next on our list of pickups is this pick set. Now when it comes to picks, there's a lot of different sizes, handles, tips, etc. that you can get. For years, what I have been using are these Harbor Freight picks. So these are, I mean, Snap-on calls these ones mini picks. If these are mini, then these are extra mini. Let's get our Snap-on tape measure out to measure. So the ones I had been using are about 5 inches long, and the Snap-ons are about 6 inches long. We'll get our Snap-on CRKT knife out to unbox these officially. Now, here's what I was thinking. One, when you look at Snap-on's product line from a pricing point of view, obviously there's some things that are just exceedingly expensive. I actually didn't think that these picks were all that costly, given the fact that, of course, these are lifetime warranties. You're going to break picks, and the thing with Harbor Freight is once you break these, you can't just go get the one pick that you broke. They're gonna want you to bring the whole set, and it's like a whole thing. Further, the pick set from Harbor Freight does not include this little number. So this has got this little point on the end of it right there. I don't know how well it'll come through in the video, but I think that that is a super interesting use case because you can come in at this angle, but then you could just sort of ever so slightly maneuver that little bit at the end with your hand, which I find to be really compelling. They feel pretty good in the hand. Obviously they are the mini pick set, but I can at least get a good purchase on this handle as opposed to this, which you can't. I mean, there's not really much to hold on to, but these were probably $1 and these were, I think, 30 bucks. Over time, I expect to pick up a few more pick sets. I would like the longer ones, and I don't know if I'll ever get into like the extra long set that Snap-on has, but certainly I would like this one and then the next size up. This is still a made in USA product. They're actually manufactured in Elkmont, Alabama. I've never been, but if you have, let me know how it is. And I think that these will get a lot of use throughout the shop. The one that I actually use the most from this Harbor Freight is just the straight pick job. I actually used this most recently to punch some holes in leather. So I would make my mark with this and then come back through with the leather punch. Of course, Snap-on has that one here. But then, like I said, so Snap-on has that one with the little curve at the end, but then they also have this hook, which I don't currently have in any brand of pick set. And then they've got your straight 90, and the Harbor Freight one is basically just 3 different versions of the 90. So this is more of like a 90, that's more of like a 75, and maybe that's like a 105, something to that effect. So I'm sure I'll still keep these around. I think that they will find use somewhere, but moving forward, this will be my primary pick set. Next, why don't we talk about magnetic tool storage. So these are Snap-on magnetic trays. They're gonna go on the side of your tool bench. These are overpriced. I'll just be very honest with you. I think you can spend $60 on the truck a lot better than this, but I saw them, I thought that they were interesting, so I picked them up and I wanted to share them with you all. They do have 3 magnets on the back. According to Snap-on's website, they can hold about 10 pounds. Truthfully, I don't ever think that I will come close to breaching that value. I'm mostly gonna use these for consumables or maybe some stuff during an in-flight project. But by and large, I don't think you're ever gonna get to that capacity, and that probably has a lot to do with the price because this is just ABS plastic and then it's got some magnets at the end. Ultimately, you could 3D print something like this for pennies on the dollar if you really wanted to. So this may actually be my first Snap-on regret purchase, but hey, you win some, you lose some. Next, why don't we talk about something we definitely do not regret, and that is this 3-piece ratchet set in the green Pro-Fi foam. Now the first thing you're asking yourself is, well, Peter, where are the 3 ratchets? I only see 1. Well, I actually already owned the other 2 ratchets that came with this. So I texted the dealer and I said, hey, I just want the regular length flex head and the foam. I don't want the extra long handle because I already have it. And I don't want the stubby because I already have that. He said, that's not a problem. So ultimately, while on the website this cost I think over $400, we only spent a little over $150 yesterday to get this ratchet and the foam. Now, one thing I'm a little surprised by is that it's actually quite hard to get stuff out of this foam. If time were of the essence, I'm not sure that this is the best solution. I don't actually think that that's the reason you're buying this, however. I think it's more so that, again, when you open your toolbox and this is what you see, you know, hey, who borrowed my 1/4 inch ratchets? I'm going back and forth on whether or not I care about the color of the foam. Of course, my 1/4 inch socket set is in red while this is in green. But of course, once we get everything in here, it looks pretty darn cool if I don't say so myself. Now this was actually a similar set that I saw at a pawn shop not too long ago. In that case, they had the black handles and I think they wanted about $350 for it, which again, I wasn't going to buy it because I knew I already had 2 of the 3 ratchets, so I was going to wait to pick this up from the dealer. Now I'll be perfectly honest, I actually wanted a 1/4 inch hard handle regular length flex head, but I just can't find those anywhere. I mean, they're not seemingly on the website anymore. This 3/8 hard handle in this beautiful blue is not even available on the website anymore. So I think one of 3 things are probably happening. 1, they're having production issues with the hard handle. I think that that's probably the least likely. 2, they're gonna sort of move away from the dark handle. I think they're just gonna, now that they feel like they've perfected the soft grip in terms of it doesn't pick up grease and all that stuff, maybe they're just not gonna manufacture the hard handles anymore. Or 3, they don't wanna sell you a dual 80 hard handle because they only wanna sell you the 100 tooth when they ramp up production. Now, he had some of those 100 tooth ratchets on the truck. I have no plans anytime soon of picking one up. When you watch Doc at Last Best Tool, his video about the 100 tooth, it leaves a lot to be desired. So I'm perfectly happy with my dual 80 setup. I'm very happy to have this in the foam. And now at this point, from a 1/4 inch point of view, I have that easy red long handle that I showed in the last video. I've got all 3 of these ratchets. All I really have left to pick up is the torque wrench, at which point I'll be able to make pretty consistent use of all the 1/4 inch sockets that I have from Snap-on. As I said in the video when I picked up this set, as a homeowner, 4 to 15 millimeter is gonna solve 90+% of the tasks that I get into. In some cases, like in the case of the lawnmower with the blades, there's a 15/16 nut on there. I have that stuff available. I don't necessarily need a Snap-on set, although I may just pick up a 15/16 chrome and impact just for that purpose. But all in all, I'm really happy with this ratcheting foam set. I think it's gonna look great in the toolbox and keep everything nice and organized. Next, why don't we talk pliers, because it would not be a Snap-on unboxing without talking some pliers. So yesterday I picked up 2 new pairs of pliers. First things first is your classic 47 ACF. So this is the triple slip joint, and of course it's in the red handle. Now, he didn't have the green on the truck, and I know I could have ordered it and whatnot, but the truth of the matter is, what I found interesting about this one is that this is actually the 100th anniversary edition of this tool. Now, does that add to the value? Does it? No, but I thought it was pretty cool. Now, I already have the 44 ACF, which is the sort of EDC version of the slip joint. Of course, this one is only a double, but in a form factor like this, there's not much more that you're gonna really be able to do. So I had been yearning for like a proper slip joint from Snap-on for some time. I was willing to deal with the red handle because it was the 100th anniversary edition. And ultimately, I'm very happy that I picked this up. Another plier pickup that we decided to make was this wire stripper slash crimper slash cutter tool from Snap-on. Now this will strip wire from 12 to 20 gauge, and ultimately it feels exceedingly good in the hand. Now what I've used to strip wires in the past is this antique looking thing. So this is called the Strip Master, and it was made in Sycamore, Illinois. many years ago at this point. It has somebody's initials on here, KJS. I don't know a KJS, so I'm not sure who this belonged to at one point, but of course it belongs to me now. This thing's nice. It goes from 14 up to 20. So with the snap-on, we gain the 12 gauge wire. This thing, of course, is a bit more wieldy, whereas this, its profile is far greater. Now, of course, you're paying for that greater profile because it gives you the automatic wire stripping. So when I'm at the workbench, I'm probably still gonna use something like this. But if I'm working on a trailer or if I'm working on a car and I need to strip some wires, I'm probably gonna end up using something like this. I think you'll be able to get in and out a little bit more easily. And then prior to picking up this, I also have a couple of these laying around. So this is just your prototypical wire stripper, right? This is sort of your all-in-one wire stripper. This even says bolt cutter on it. This thing was actually made in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Company is the Thomas and Betts. So another antique here. I have a few of these that are relatively newer. This one actually goes from 10 all the way up to 20. If I squint, I see somebody's initials, but I can't quite make them out. We're getting a lot of play in the handle here. And again, in terms of bang for your buck, in terms of sizing, I mean, it's really not even close. Again, if you're working on a trailer, if you're working on a car, I think you're gonna wanna go with something like this as opposed to this, just given how unwieldy it is. But there's some stuff that this can do that this just can't. So you always have to have the right tool for the job. And as always, we would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Rounding out our plier pickups of the day, this is actually the thing I'm probably most excited about from yesterday's haul. These are the snap-on locking pliers. I think that these came out pretty recently. These are made in the USA, which is super, super cool. And I just don't have something in this form factor that I really appreciate. The closest thing that I have to this is this set of locking pliers from Harbor Freight, Pittsburgh brand. And you know, it's funny, maybe I should do like a total video on this so I can get you guys really up close with like some macro shots. But the build quality between this and this, it's just not even up for debate, right? And it's funny because on the comments, half of the people will say that the stuff from Harbor Freight works just as good, which in some cases very well may be true. Do I think it's true here? This has up to 4,000 pounds of grabbing ability. I don't think that this comes anywhere close. So I'm gonna tell you right now that that's probably not true. You could just tell by looking at the spring that there's no way that this thing is gonna do the same thing that this thing can do. Now, do you pay for that privilege? Of course. And as a DIYer, will you need what Snap-on offers? Maybe not. But here's the other thing. The build quality is also not comparable between the two. If we did an up close, one, these jaws are off center. So again, I don't know how well it'll come through in this video. Maybe I should do a follow-up video, but these jaws are not centered. These jaws are centered. Another thing I noticed when I'm looking at this, right? So I've got this rivet here connecting this part of the handle with this jaw. There is no gap at all right here. When you look at the same one on Harbor Freight, there's plenty of gap. So that's where your dust and dirt and grime are gonna fall into, and eventually these things just aren't gonna work as well. What are some other differences? Well, this has the oversized knob on the end. Makes turning it a little bit easier. This one, pretty small. Now, that in and of itself, maybe not the end of the world, but here's where the Snap-on one really shines. This will take a 3/16 hex key to allow you a little bit more leverage when tightening or loosening this nut. Now in the comments, I get it from both sides. On the one hand, I'm told, you can buy everything at Harbor Freight and it'll do the same exact thing that Snap-on can do, okay? And then I get folks saying, you cannot compare Harbor Freight to Snap-on because this costs 50 cents or whatever it costs, and this costs whatever it costs, 50 bucks, say. You can't have it both ways. Either Snap-on makes a made in USA, high quality product with unparalleled performance, and it comes at a cost, or they make junk that's overpriced, has none of the interesting stuff that we just talked about, at which point we can compare it to this. So you really just have to decide what game are you willing to play when you're comparing one tool to another. My intent is not to bash Harbor Freight. In fact, I just picked up my first wrench set from Icon that I'm gonna do a whole separate video on, and I'm super excited about it. But is there any world in which I believe that the Icon product, or any Harbor Freight product for that matter, can hold a candle to the Snap-on product from a hand tools point of view? No, I just don't think that they can. So anyway, Icon, versus Snap-on notwithstanding. These locking pliers I think are gonna be super cool. Again, the only thing I have close in this form factor is this one from Pittsburgh. I just went through all the reasons why I don't really like this thing. It's not necessarily gonna go in the garbage. I think we may throw it on the boat or just something so that we have it if we were to need it. But when I need something in this form factor, I'm gonna reach for this every single time. Only 2 more items on the unboxing. First things first is the MAGMATG. Now this is your 8x11. This is the biggest one they make, and they make 3 sizes in total. The magnets are as strong as you would expect Snap-on magnets to be. So if you want to put your pliers on here like I had in the thumbnail, you could certainly do that. They aren't going to go anywhere on you. Now I think if you're an automotive technician and you have a lift, this is great. You can put something like this on the lift. You have easy access to your tools while you're doing a job. Great. In my case, I don't work off of a lift, so who knows the use cases I will find for this. A couple things that come to mind already. Side of the toolbox for your hammers. I don't have a great place for them in my toolbox at the moment. Another interesting use case is that it can go in your toolbox to keep stuff from rolling around. And I'm sure over time we will think of more and more use cases. But the challenge for everyone in the comments today is let me know, what do you use these mats for? Because I am very, very interested. And that brings us to the very last tool in our unboxing journey, which is of course the Torch 300. Now Snap-on makes this Torch 300 in 3 different varieties. They have a 300, a 400, and they recently came out with a 100. He actually had all 3 of them on the truck, and I decided to go with the 300 as my first purchase. Now I have many different ways of dealing with heat shrink. I've got this heat gun from Milwaukee. I mainly use this to get stickers off or just heat up something that's cold. If you have like a frozen door handle or something, this would work great. But theoretically you could use this for heat shrink. And then inside of my Vito Pro Pack OC140, which I did a whole video on this whole kit, and I think you should definitely check it out. But in here I actually have the first Snap-on tool that I ever purchased. So this is their butane powered soldering iron slash heat gun slash hot wire or hot rope cutter slash plastic welder. So this thing is beautiful. It has a magnet on the back, so if you want to put it on the side of your workbench, you could. I don't use it that often, so I don't need to do something like that. Now what's been frustrating about this is that when you let it sit for a while, the thing just doesn't want to turn on. You really have to sit there and you have to play with it. And then eventually you can get it to turn on. This doesn't throw out a direct flame, same as the heat gun, whereas this, your butane torch, is gonna throw a direct flame. And this thing is just way more versatile. Ultimately, and I'm thinking about doing a whole video on this, there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat when it comes to dealing with heat shrink, soldering wires, etc. One other tool that I have for this purpose that isn't shown here is just something you plug into the wall, and it's basically your Milwaukee heat gun, but it's plugged into the wall. The reason I wanted this little number is both for heat shrink, but also I've always wanted a butane system that has this profile because I think it has a lot of different use cases. The first thing my wife said when she saw it is like, oh, can we make creme brulee and do the thing on the top? I said, absolutely we can. So that may in fact be the first use case for something like this. Other use cases would include starting fires and of course dealing with heat shrink and whatever else. This is actually a made in Ireland product, believe it or not. So do with that information what you will. Ultimately, I thought that this was reasonably priced for what it is. It's got the knob on the side so you could turn it up and turn it down. I haven't actually filled it with butane just yet because what I'm learning from this one is that you probably want to leave these things pretty close to empty, fill it when you need it, and then empty them once again. But I was happy with this pickup. We finally have it in green. I know somebody in the past recommended I get the Torch 400, but I felt like for dealing with heat shrink, the Torch 400 was probably too much. I think that's definitely more for starting fires and whatnot. But let me know your thoughts. Do you think I should have gone with the 400 or the 100? And who knows, maybe we'll add them to our arsenal at some point in the future. So that's gonna do it for today's unboxing. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let me know what you think I should be buying next off the Snap-on truck, and I'll see you in the very next video.